Hello and welcome developers. My name is Shay and this is another episode of Shay Develops. Today we're going to be talking about file input and output. We're going to be creating a new file and then inputting some data into that file that we could then read. This is going to be the first part in a multi-part series because this time we're only going to be talking about Java.io, which is an API that allows the input and output, which is the I/O part of the Java.io, which allows input and output to files and creating files. And there's another API called Java.nio, which is the new input output that Java created. There is some differences with these. The one is like say how you approach input and output, and the second is, well, there's multiple, but another one as far as the differences. Java.nio was created for to help boost the Java.io and help with some things that it was failing on, but it didn't really do a great job, and there's still some issues with it as far as like with benchmark testing. You could see that Java.nio can be slower than Java.io, so it really have to get in there and kind of get familiar and play around with these things to see what's going to work best in your kind of project. But in this video here, though, we're going to be working, like I said, with Java.io, which I said is an API for input-output with files. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is go over here and create a file and make sure you see we're importing the Java.io file here, and we're going to do equals new file, and we're going to pass it a path name. Let me actually go back to see if I can. No, I won't do that again. Okay, we're going to actually pass it a path name, and it's going to be the path name of the file we want created. So if we don't pass it like our drive letter and then like our folder structure, like the whole path, it's going to assume that the path is going to be within this Java package here the package here that I've created, Java.io, YT. So for now, I am just going to put io file.text, but I could come in here and put C colon double / that way, because I'm escaping one and then putting the other, and this is just for Windows. If you're on a Mac, you would probably put this / and your path directory would be a little bit different. So I could put this, actually I could do e/java / Java.io YT testing. So even though I don't have this testing folder within here, once I go to actually create this, it should create that testing folder for me. So I have some data though that I want to input to a file that we're going to be using later. I'm just going to copy and paste it from something else I've already been working on. Leave in the comments if you know what that's from. So we're going to continue on. Now that we have our file, and we are going to try and create a file using the file.createNewFile. But we have an issue. We can't just do file.createNewFile, because if we hover over, it's going to tell us the unhandled exception Java.io exception. So if you'll look back on one of the last videos I did, which was a try catch video, we need to put this within a try catch to catch the IO exception that it could possibly throw if it can't create the file. So we're going to go ahead and do try. And then catch, IO exception. And we'll just put, there was a problem with the file creation. All right, so there we go. So now we can try this again, and then just go ahead and open up all this stuff. Let's go ahead and run it. Building, parsing, there we go. And it says there was a problem creating the file. So it actually tried to file.create new file, and then instead of creating the new file, it spit us out an issue. So we need to figure out why, right? Well, it might be with this path name here, because I was messing around with this testing part. Let's go ahead and just remove this. Try that again. And there we go. Okay, so since I was trying to create another directory within here, it didn't allow me to do that, but we have now created our IO file.txt. We can open it up, and there is absolutely nothing in it. So a few things though that you can do after you created your file. You can actually, this outputs a true or false statement, so we can actually create a Boolean, and we'll just do result, and we can set this result equals. So if the file actually was created, which it should have been since we didn't have to come down in here, we could do result, and then we could get stuff like the path. And there's a few different kinds of paths. We have the path, the absolute path, and the canonical path, right? So if you want to show like that, so that kind of information here, we could do toPath, and we could do file.toPath, and we're gonna make some copies of that, and we're gonna do get path, absolute path, and canonical path. All right, so for this one, we just need to change this to get path. This will be get absolute path and get canonical path. All right. Oh, why does it do that? Okay. So now we can run this again after we go ahead and erase this. So we could run it right now. It actually won't get to that file creation, and it didn't pass an error either. But because this is false, because it never was able to create that file because we already have that file created, it wasn't able to. It didn't get me to the paths that I wanted to know. So I can go ahead and erase this, delete it, run this again, and then now our path information is being output. So also just keep in mind, I could erase this right here, erase this text file again, run it one more time, and keep an eye on these paths and all that stuff. And there we go. Now see, our path and get path and absolute and canonical path have all changed. Well, not the absolute path and canonical path, but the path, the toPath and the get path definitely have changed. And that's just a way though to get the path of where the data or where the file is that you just created, where it's being saved to. All right, now there is some other stuff that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to actually talk about writing to a file. And there's actually a few ways to do this, even within Java.io. So we're going to talk about a couple here, and we'll be talking about more as far whenever we talk about the Java.nio API in a later video. So after we run, get this result, we create our file or whatever, we can, and I'm just going to do it outside of here, call a file output stream, and then make sure we're doing the Java.io here. So we got file output stream. I'm just going to call this FOS equals new file output stream, and we're going to do file.getName. And that is going to get the name, so it's going to get iofile.txt. It's going to get that name, and it's going to put it into the file output stream here. So it's basically just grabbing that file. Now, we could try just to do fos.write, but you'll notice here that it either wants an array of bytes or an integer or an array of bytes with a couple of integers. So if we just try and pass our story, it definitely doesn't like that. So the first thing we're going to have to, actually we don't even have to do that. We could convert this into a byte array and then send the byte array here, or maybe we could just do get bytes, and that'll allow us to write that data now to the file that we just created. And one other thing though that we're going to do, that we're going to want to do, is we're going to want to close our file. Reason being is it closes a stream, which is kind of important with Java because that uses up resources, and resources are definitely finite. So we definitely want to close any streams that we've opened up. But if we didn't close the stream, it could potentially do some weird stuff later on that we weren't expecting whenever we are writing to this, or writing and reading from this file. So we close it, and now we're going to go ahead and run it, and it won't create a new one, but it should add our data. That was our story right here. It should add it directly to our file, which it absolutely does, which is pretty awesome, I think, right? But say I wanted to add some more stuff, right? So FOS write, I wanted to add the byte A to the end of this. Well, we're probably going to get an error because we've already closed our file. Yes, there was a problem with the file creation. The issue being this right here. So if we comment this out, try again. No error, we're good to go. But now you'll check right here, that big A that wasn't in there to begin with, but now it's right there. And you'll also notice that the data didn't get duplicated on top of the other data. It just put in, basically rewrote the data that was already in there over top of it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and keep that closed and then get rid of that. Now there's another way to do this with as far as a buffered output stream, and it works very much the same, except for instead of the file system, we're just going to use a buffered output stream. We'll call it BOS equals new buffered output stream, and we want to pass the file output stream that we created. So we could either just do FOS, or we could also do new file output stream and then pass file.getName. This way, and that way we don't actually even have to do it. Oh, we don't even have to actually have the file output stream created on a new line. We can just do it all on one line. But another thing to, no, actually we don't have to do that. We can just close it with that. All right, so now let's go ahead and erase this file. Rerun it. got all our stuff looking good, and we have our story in our text file, which is absolutely great. So that is actually about it as far as everything that I'm going to be covering with the Java.io input output. As far as this is kind of the old way, but people definitely still use this, and it still has a place in Java. And like I think I mentioned earlier, there's actually several different ways to input and output data to a file, creating a file, all that good stuff. And in another video, we're going to be reading the data from the file, so stay tuned for that one. But for the time being, hopefully you guys are staying safe. Keep on learning with me. I really appreciate it. Tell me in the comments what you guys are working on, how I can help you achieve your education goals as far as when it comes to coding. All right, so you guys take care, and I will see y'all in another video. Thanks for liking and subscribing.